Arkadaşlar geliyor gelmekte olan Exile 2'nin 0.3 liginin lansmanı şimdi başlıyor. 3, 2, 1. Haydi bakalım. Yayında beraber izleyeceğiz.
I'm Jonathan Rogers from Grinding Gear Games and welcome to GGG Live. Today we're going to show you an exclusive
Ses iyi
reveal
mi
of what's coming next for
arkadaşlar?
Path of Exile 2. Twitch drops are enabled on today's live stream, so you'll be able to claim your Sun Priest's Incineration rare finisher effect by following the instructions below. Now with that out of the way, let's get started. It's time to give you a teaser of what's coming in Path of Exile 2, the Third Edict.
Haydi bakalım Duyuruldu mi? Çok hype'landım Duyuruldu diye bak.
I have called you here to save our people. To save
Exile'de bir de vardı. Aktör'te.
Over the ages, we have known pain like no other. But we endured, and we became mighty.
Gemi muhabbeti vardı Aktör'te.
Now, outsiders dishonor our shores, and we have stood by.
Adalara gideceğiz farklı.
Hear my voice, ancestors. Show us your strength. Show us the true way.
Bir anda Duyuruldu gelmiyor mu?
I understand.
Oğlum bosslar yine efso ya. Davy Jones boss'u.
The true Makoi will rise.
Aktör. Okey. 3 tane farklı aktör var. 35 yeni var. 24 boss. Koşma gelmiş. Yeni trace sistemi mi? Doğru mu gördüm? Yeni... Aha Abyss mi? Oy! Abyss geliyor. Exile 1'den. Vardı zaten Exile 1'de olan. Exile 1'in en kötü şeydi tabii, kontentiydi. Yeni trace sistemi diyor oğlum, ben ona koptum. Yeni trace sistemi diyor oğlum, Action House falan mı geldi acaba?
Now, as you can see, there's a lot going on, and we have a lot to reveal today. We'll start by going over Act 4, the next chapter in the Path of Exile 2 storyline. But that's not all. There's also 3 new interlude acts to get you to endgame, which means we're removing cruel difficulty too. After that, we'll be going through the massive changes to characters. I'm super excited to show you how I've overhauled the entire support gem system, added new skills, and yes,
Yeni Ascendance de yok.
Next, we'll go over the Rise of the Abyssal, this season's exclusive League
Yeni
mechanic,
craft
and talk about the new
diyor.
rewards, crafting systems, areas, and bosses that it adds. After
Tamam,
that, on to
aktları
changes we're
artık
making to the
tekrar
endgame.
etmiyoruz arkadaşlar.
Then it's time to talk about items, crafting, and oh yeah,
Craft
trade.
değişiklikleri var
That's
sağ
gonna be a big one.
altta. Yeni endgame
We'll then go over our
encounter'ları
new
diyor.
supporter
Benim
packs
arkamda
and
hemen.
finish up with a live Q&A session where Ziggy D will ask Path of Exile 2's game directors, myself and Mark, your questions from Twitch chat. And after that, at 4 p.m. Pacific, patch notes. They're
Senkron
not quite
trade ne
complete,
abi?
but they should give you some nice details to
Offline'ken
chew on.
alabileceksin itemleri. Oy!
We've got a lot to cover today, but first, another announcement. When the Third Edict launches on the 29th, we'll be having a free weekend for Path of Exile 2. That's right,
Gördünüz
Path
mü
of Exile 2 will be
arkadaşlar?
free
Beleş
for the first
olacak.
time without requiring an early
29
access
ile
key.
1 arası.
The free weekend will end on
Almayan
September the
arkadaşlar
1st, so you'll
almayın
have plenty
dedim
of
ben
time to give the
size.
game a try. All right, let's get started with Act 4. The story continues from the end of Act 3. Doyani has agreed to help you find an
Oğlum
ancient
beleş
weapon that
olursa
can be
bir
used
dünya
against
oyuncu
corruption,
gelecek lan.
the instrument of the Third Edict. The weapon was broken in ages past, but he believes that the pieces may be found in the Karui archipelago, the home
Oyun
of the
beleş
Karui
olacak.
tribes.
29'u ve 31'ine
journey to
kadar. 2 gün
Kingsmarch.
boyunca. Beleş,
Hire
tamamen
a ship
beleş.
and set sail. When you open the map, you can choose to sail anywhere you
Tam
like.
2 gün o ara
Act
satın
4 is
alanlar
completely
beleşe
non-linear,
satın almış
and you can
olmayacak
visit
mı
the
oğlum?
islands in any order you choose.
Kütüphanede kalmayacak mıdır?
Will you visit the pristine beaches of Whakapanu Island?
Aa
The
ben
Karui
kalır
whisper of a
sandım.
curse
Bir
that afflicts
dakika.
all who travel there. Perhaps it's related to the weapon you seek.
Bence kalır mı abi? Ne bileyim amık merhametliler
Or maybe you
sandım.
will visit the volcanic shores of the Isle of Kin.
Neyse dur dur.
The Kin have been more restless recently, mining for sulfite and driven by some dark force. Perhaps you will
Oğlum-
choose to consult with one of the local Karui tribes. Their ancient wisdom could hold clues to finding the Third Edict.
Aktör de anlatıyor şu
No
an.
matter where you choose to go, you will fight dangerous beasts, find fabulous treasures,
Ses biraz daha mı ses verelim?
and battle incredible bosses.
A challenger!
Bu Toto sistemi gibi.
Yama sees your
Peto
soul!
Exile birden olan.
There are 8 islands to discover, each teeming with its own flora and fauna. Act 4 contains over 100 new monster types, 16 new areas, 12 new bosses, and plenty of other interesting encounters.
16
There's a
tane
huge amount to show,
farklı araya
but we're not going to
olacakmış.
spoil too much here.
Yüzden
We want to
fazla
give you a
yaratık
chance to discover it all for yourself. What happens after Act 4? Well, until now you had to repeat the entire campaign again before you could face the endgame. But after adding Act 4, the game is far too long to make you do that. We needed something else to do in between the end of Act 4 and the endgame. So what else could we do? Add 3 new mini-acts, of course, and we're
Artık
calling
Akt
them
1,
the
Akt 2, Akt
interludes.
3 baştan başlamayacağız
The
abi.
interludes are a set of 3 temporary
Akt
side
4'ten
stories that
sonra
will be
yeni
included in the
ufak
game
mini
until Act
aktlar
5 is released,
getirmişler.
that will take you to level 65 where the endgame can begin.
Biraz kısayım o zaman.
The first interlude sends you on a journey back to Ogham. Renly has been leading the efforts to rebuild Ogham village after the defeat of Count Geonor. But there's a new
Artık
danger
Akt
afoot.
3'ü 2 kere yapmak çok zor
The
oluyordu
nearby
ya.
town of
Çok
Holton is
güzel oldu
surrounded
bu.
by an impenetrable darkness, and each night their corrupted townfolk emerge to raid the local farmlands. You'll discover new areas and new bosses. You'll need to find your way through the darkness, uncover the source of corruption,
Soon you will serve our master.
and defeat it.
Yes, I shall dance with their corpse.
And that's just the first interlude. The second interlude will have you return to the Vasteri Desert, where Asala has been given a sacred duty. When the skies align, the gifting of water requires a chosen Sekima to meet with the Selkari,
Akt 4'ten sonra
guardians
3
of the
tane
sacred
farklı
water,
akt olacak.
but they're nowhere to be found.
Onları sırayla
need to track
gösteriyor.
down the
İnsel
Selkari.
1, İnsel 2, İnsel 3 diye.
Find those responsible for disrupting the gifting. Fight even more new bosses. Discover the secrets of the ancient ritual. Discover new locations. And
Ligler
ultimately help
doğru.
Asala carry out her sacred duty. Now for Interlude 3. As
Bu da
royal thaumaturge of the Val,
Endgame'den
Doyani had
önceki
plans
son
within
akt
plans to save his
olacak.
people from the cataclysm perpetuated by Atzeri's lust for power. One such plan involved sealing a group of willing Val deep in a great mountain vault near the home of the
Biraz
Asmeri,
daha kıstım
deep
o
enough to
zaman.
survive the cataclysm. Even though thousands of years have passed, he believes that their descendants may still live and may be key to defeating the beast. The journey up the mountain will be dangerous. New foes stand in your way. And the further up the mountain you venture, the colder it will become. Explore caves of ice.
Oğlum biz
And into the
720'de
vault.
izliyormuşuz. Bir Allah'ın kulu
Who
niye
can say
söylemiyor?
what you will
Şurada
find
800
within?
kişi var.
The interludes are 6 to 7 areas each and generally include 4 boss fights as well. When you put that together with Act 4, that adds up to 35 new areas in the campaign and 24 new bosses.
Ayarladık.
It's worth making clear that the interludes are temporary. When Act 5 and 6 are added, the interludes will be going away. These are side stories after all, but don't worry, the bosses and areas that make up the interlude are all part of the endgame. We're not just going to throw them away. And with that, we don't need cruel difficulty anymore.
Artık
We do
kuryer
know that
yok.
it was a pretty big chore to have to play through the campaign multiple times on each character, and this was a huge reason that the campaign could feel like a bit of a slog when playing through again. But we do also have another new feature to address that particular concern as well. So let's talk about sprinting.
Koşma
In
geliyor
030, when
artık.
you hold down the dodge roll button, your character will go into a sprint after they
Dodge
finish the
roll'e
roll.
basılı tuttuğumuzda
This is
koşacak
available
artık.
on all character classes, and there's no limitation on how long you can sprint for.
Herhangi bir limiti yok,
The
sınırı yok.
primary purpose of this
Sonsuza
feature
kadar
is to make navigating
koşabileceğiz.
areas faster when out of combat. Because of that, if you do take a hit while sprinting,
Ama
you'll
eğer
fall to the
bir
ground.
hit yersen yere düşeceksin ve böyle
The best idea is to
bağıracaklar.
use a skill when you see monsters. That'll break you out of the sprint so you can engage with no danger. If you do need to run away from monsters, just hold spacebar. You won't be vulnerable during the roll, and you're faster while sprinting than basically any
Koşarken bir
monster in the
tane
game,
ok
allowing you
yesen
to retreat from
düşeceksen ne
combat.
anladım ki?
Sprint is a pretty significant change to PoE 2's gameplay.
Kafama
What I like
kenardan bir
most
ok
about it is that
gelecek
we can
düşeceğim
accelerate
ama
the pace of the game for those who want that,
Dodge
without
roll'e
having to
basılı
compromise on
tutarsan
PoE 2's
koşuyorsun.
more visceral combat systems. Okay, so that's the new extensions to the campaign, but there's a whole giant league to play through as well. I'll leave that to Mark to talk about later. And that's because what I want to talk about now is the new stuff for your characters. And probably one of the biggest new systems here is with the support gems. Now, support gems are one of the most
Yeni
interesting
support
elements to
gemler
creating a
var
build.
ve support
They
gem
want to enable
sistemi
so many
değişiyor.
interesting mechanics and different ways to play. But PoE 2's support gem system has just never been quite right. One of the major issues is the limitation of only having one support gem of each type on your character. We didn't want builds to just become using the same 5 most powerful supports in every skill. The problem with this design, though, is that it's actually working against using multiple skills in your build.
Aynı
If
support
you can only
gemini
use
iki
each
farklı
support gem on
skill'de
one skill,
kullanamıyordum. Bu
it means
büyük
that
bir
you're
sıkıntı
encouraged to go all in on that one
oluşturuyor
ability.
için
And
diyordu.
we want to encourage you to combo your abilities. Something needed to change. So with that in mind, we've removed the restriction of having one of each support gem per
Şimdi
character.
artık
You can now use as
aynı
many
support
copies as you
gemini
like.
3 farklı 4 farklı skill'de
This should
kullanabileceksin.
drastically increase the amount of possible builds and increase the amount of skill diversity. There are a lot of potential builds that suffered from the previous restriction. For example, a poison build previously couldn't add poison to more than one skill. They couldn't use stacking poison on more than one skill either. This severely limited your ability to combo with anything
Abi
outside of the
çok farklı
specifically
boyutlar
designed poison
çıkar lan
archetype,
bununla
but now you
beraber.
can. Many utility skills previously couldn't scale to endgame because the supports that would make them scale were more useful to use in other skills. You would never speed up killing Palm with martial tempo when you would much rather use
Evet
it on your
abi
primary
2-3
skill
tane
instead.
skill'e marşa
There are
tempo
more examples
koyup
like this
speed
all over the place.
arttırabilirsin artık.
In addition to that, though, we thought there wasn't enough feeling of progression in the supports as you went through the game. There were only 3 tiers of supports, and many of the most important ones were given out at Tier 1. Also, there were no strict upgrades, meaning that upgrading supports when you ran out of sockets required quite a lot of thinking. In order to solve these issues, we now also have multiple levels of many supports as you go through the game.
Support gemlerin
For
artık
example,
levelleri
double
var.
barrel
1, 2,
support
3
gives you an
diye.
extra bolt, but at the cost of 30% less reload speed.
Örneğin
At
bunda
Tier 2, the
%30
penalty gets lowered to
reload
20%.
speed varken,
But then at Tier
diğerinde
3, the
bir
support gem gets something
sonrakinde
new.
%20 less reload speed.
It now reloads
Üçüncüde
automatically when you
ise
heavy stun an enemy.
heavy stun atarsan
In some
otomatikman
cases, the highest tiers might work a
bütün
little
botlar
differently, and you'll have to
dolacak.
decide if you like the
Reload
upgrade or not,
yapacak.
depending on your build. For example, rapid casting. The first couple of levels gives 15, then 20% increased cast speed.
Level
But
farkı
then at
yok
Tier
mu?
3, it changes to
Yani
a new
level
approach.
1'de direkt
For
3.
each
support
different
gemi
spell you cast in
kullanabileceğim
the
mi
last
ben
8
acaba?
seconds, you get
Merak
10%
ettim onu.
increased cast speed, which could be a pretty big bonus if you use a lot of different spells.
Leveling'de
So that's
yırtarız
pretty
o
good for
zaman.
upgrades through the campaign, but we wanted to add a little more spice to the endgame for supports too. And that's where our
Yayına
new
sesini
system,
kısayım.
lineage supports, comes in. You can think of these like unique items, but for
Kıstım
supports.
biraz daha.
There are supports that are only available at endgame, but they're much more powerful. Like Ratha's Assault. It's an upgraded version of Double Barrel that reloads your skill as you dodge roll,
Artık kalın
as well as
support
increasing the number of
gemler
bolts it can
geldi.
hold.
Lineage
But
support
it
diye
does mean that it's
geçiyor.
the only way
Özel
you can reload the skill
supportlar.
now. Unlike regular
Endgame'de
supports,
düşecek.
you can't
Özel
find these for the
bosslardan
uncut
düşecek.
support gem.
Mesela bu Zarok'tan.
Just like unique items, many of these can be found from specific bosses.
Örneğin 2 kere
And
daha
there's a ton
fazla
in the regular
atacak.
drop pool too.
Bu etrafa
Some of them
random
are fairly
atacak.
rare,
Artı bir level skill verecek.
others fairly common.
Ama tabi 65 levelde kullanabileceksin bunları minimum.
Some of them are built to
Leveling'de
find,
ortalığı yakıp kül etme diye. Leveling kolaylaşmasın
others are
diye.
just straight up power upgrades.
65 level rekarını koymuşlar.
All in all, there's around 40 lineage supports being
Ama
added
bunlar
throughout the
zor
endgame.
düşecek
So
diyor ve
there's a lot of
endgame
power to
bosslarına
find out
özel.
there. Now, the new support gems are certainly going to open up a lot of builds, but of course we have a huge range of improvements to individual character classes as well. As well as adding new skills, we had a big focus on buffing existing skills so that they can scale well into the endgame.
Var olan
There's a huge amount to
klaslarda ve
cover here,
skill'lerde
so
çok
we're not going
fazla
to discuss
değişiklik
everything.
yaptık diyor.
We're just going to quick fire through some of the coolest changes. We wanted to make cold a more useful element on the Ranger, so we've expanded the cold tools available. As well as increasing its range, the Skep Shot now creates fragments of ice whenever it hits the ground. These fragments explode after a short time, making the skill better for killing groups of enemies. But not only that, we added an ice fragment support that creates more of them when killing frozen enemies. And a new buff skill called Ice-Tipped Arrows that allows all your arrows to create ice fragments. This already gives clear to rangers wanting to use ice, but to take further advantage of the ice fragments, Freezing Salvo has been upgraded to shoot additional cold arrows towards every fragment, giving you a nuke-like ability.
Ve yeni skiller eklemişler. Abi şurada bir
We've also
kesmez
modified Snipe
stand
to consume
göster
frozen
de
from
bir
enemies,
şok
dealing a
olalım
huge
be.
amount more damage, giving you a nice ice single target option. And something you might notice about this is that the bonus is a lot higher against bosses. This is actually a change you'll see throughout the entire game. Since it's a lot harder to freeze a boss, you should get a bigger reward for it. Another theme you'll see throughout the game is making movement feel better. Toxic Growth is a skill that was pretty cool, but a bit annoying to use with the jump that it had. Now Toxic Growth is a range skill, so you can spam it more easily. And we've also added a new poison skill while we were at it, called Toxic Domain. It creates a small area around you that makes all your attacks create toxic growth pustules, but attached to monsters. Another skill that was annoying to use was Electrocuting Arrow. It's now just a regular arrow, making it easier to use. But it also means you can support it with projectile supports.
Oğlum
And
videodaki
it now
göründüğü
also has
kısmına
area of
bakmayın.
effect,
Her
making it a
videoda
tool
böyle
for more
kötü
than just single
gözüküyor. Lightning
target,
Spear
and
de
allowing it to
kötü
scale into the
gözüküyordu.
endgame.
Ama bir vuruyoruz ortalığı yıkıyoruz.
We also added a new
Ya bunlar
spirit
şu an
reservation
leş
called
gibi yerlerde
Mirage
deniyor.
Archer. This is a meta skill that allows you to create shadowy clones of
Mirage
yourself
Archer
to
seni
use a skill
takip
of your
eden,
choice.
senin yaptığını yapan bir tane kopya üretiyor. Sen bir skill
Of
atıyorsan
course, one of the other
o
big
da bir
problems the
tane
Ranger had
atıyor.
was
Daha az
survivability.
demek vuran.
Evasion was the weakest of the three defenses, and we wanted to change that. Currently, evasion doesn't evade all types of hits in the game, so
Defansa
you're still
bufflar
vulnerable to things
yaptık
like
diyor.
slams or
Evasion
unblockable attacks.
yeterli değil diyor. Evasion yetmiyordu diyor.
To make evasion
Bağırtıyorlardı
carries more tanky,
Huntress'ları,
we're adding a new
Ranger'ları.
mechanic called Deflect.
Deflect getirdik bunun içinde
Unlike
diyor.
evasion, Deflect works on everything, and if you successfully deflect a hit, you take 40% less damage. Items can now give you a mod that gives you some amount of deflection based on your evasion.
Vay ananın avradını ya. Yediğin hasarın
there's a bunch of it
%40'ını direkt
available on the
deflect
passive tree
edeceksin
too.
diyor. Yok
Deflection is
sayda.
rolled in addition to evasion, so
Vay
this is an
babanın
upgrade for regular
kemiğine.
hits too.
Hem hit hem ailment
And
falan
unlike
hem
evasion,
hit
there's no
hem
maximum
dot.
chance. You
Çok
can reach
absürt.
100% deflect against all hits if you spec into it enough. Of course, this is a buff that helps all Dex characters, so the Mercenary and the Monk,
%40
but especially
ne
the
demek
Huntress, are
hocam?
seeing big defense boosts from this as well. Speaking of defensive mechanics, let's talk about block and
Armor daha
parry.
kimse kullanmaz
Now,
herhalde o
one of the
zaman.
big concerns on the release of the Huntress was parry feeling unreliable. One of the big reasons for this is there's a lot of hits that are not blockable, and thus not parryable either. So a huge balance change we're making is that now everything is blockable, except for specifically unblockable red flash skills that bosses use.
Her şey artık bloklanabilecek mi dedi? Perilenebilecek mi
parry
dedi?
much more
Doğru mu
alive.
anladım?
And not only that, but to make block and parry nicer to use, you now also move faster than before while using these abilities. This is a massive buff to passive block as well. So to counter that, we did have to lower the max passive block a bit, but overall you should feel much safer.
Çok iyi.
Fire skills on the warrior were not really cutting the mustard, so we decided we needed to upgrade a bunch of them, but also add some more as well.
Fire
Let's
skill'leri
start with a
çok
buff.
kötüydü. Fire
Volcanic
skill'lerine
fish in our
buff
branches
atıyoruz
into
diyor.
multiple
Kimse
fishes,
kullanmıyordu
giving it
diyor.
much more clearing potential.
Ve kullanımını da değiştiriyor
We've also added
biraz
a new
diyor.
skill called Forge Hammer. This skill throws a molten hammer that does a slam at a distance. You can recall the hammer back by using the skill again if you like, but the cooler thing to do is to use a war cry near it. Using a war cry makes the hammer explode,
Oğlum
making a bunch
atıyor
of
geri
volcanic fishes
çekiyor.
around.
Yerde oluşan depreme bak ama.
Volcanic fishes
Süpermiş.
re-trigger when you slam them, so it's a great skill to make a flaming arena to fight a boss.
Oğlum nasıl bir çekiş fırlatmaktır.
We also buffed Perfect Strike to have much larger area of
Yerde
effect,
deprem oluşuyor.
and changed Molten Blast to not always force you to move forward. Trust me, it feels a lot better to use now. The skill now has massively boosted chance to ignite monsters as well. And you're going to want to ignite
Molten
monsters
Blast da
due to a new
Smolder'ın
glory
düz
skill
vuruşu
called
gibi
Ancestral
olmuş.
Cry. Ancestral Cry charges up with glory by igniting monsters, invoking King Kaum's favor.
Oğlum şu
After
yerde
you
nasıl
do,
bir deprem
use
oluyor?
it to channel
Mükemmel değil
Kaum's
mi?
ancestral power. Every attack will be ancestrally boosted with fire. Your very steps will explode, triggering volcanic fissures. And molten balls will
Vay
erupt from
babana
your
kemiği
attacks.
lan ne güzel gözüküyor.
Warrior shield skills were another area we wanted to improve. Now that we've got sprint,
Deprem demeyeyim o,
we actually don't need to have a
earthquake o
cooldown
zaman.
on shield charge anymore. It now also does more damage the further away you are when you use it.
Hiç şarjlı
Shield Wall
değiştirmişler.
got significantly upgraded AoE. Also, you can shield charge right through it to trigger all the walls. We also added a new shield war cry. Fortifying Cry gives you a defensive buff, but it also builds up charge on your shield that empowers your other shield skills. And Magma Barrier now doesn't require timing in order to use. Just wait for your shield to charge up and block.
Magma bariyerle bosslara tek
Seismic Cry now
atıyorlardı
stuns
biliyor
enemies that
musun?
are primed for stun.
Şimdi üstüne daha da bufflanmış.
And we changed the Sunder interaction with Armor Break. It now also gives a Sundered Armor debuff that makes enemies take 40% extra physical damage.
Oğlum
Great for
şaşırtıyorlar, her şeyi bufflamışlar bunlar.
Ancestral Warrior Totem has undergone some pretty significant changes too. We wanted the skill to feel more like using an ultimate. That summoning an ancestor to
Ne
fight
güzel
you was a big
gözüküyor
deal.
ya.
So we've changed this totem to require 3 endurance charges to summon, and massively buffed its damage. It also now scales your weapon
Bu
damage
volkanik
too.
fissure değil mi?
Since there's no limit anymore,
Bu lig
if
bir
you build around
Warrior'dan bir
generating endurance
volkanik
charges,
fissure
you can summon an
yaptık ya.
entire forest of totems. In order to make that easier, we added some new sources of endurance charges. There's now a support to make perfect strike generate charges,
Perfectly time
and a support for
yaparsan
generating
endurance
endurance charges
charge
from heavy stuns as
verecekmiş
well.
de. Oho. Perfectly time da oku
Speaking of
geriyon
totems, we
geriyon
wanted to
tam
upgrade the
zamanında
Warbringer.
fırlatıyorsun. Öyle
Among
bir
the
şey
other changes we made to
perfectly
this
time.
class, Answered Call now gives an extra totem, and the spirits have just been generally buffed in many ways. Use it with your limitless ancestral warrior forest to make an army of Karui that would make Tukahama proud. We've also merged the Great Wolf Howl and Warcaller's Bellow support, so that you can get all the benefits with 1 point.
Oğlum work şey değil mi ya?
And
Bu
Encased in
zaten
Jade no
oynanmıyor
longer
muydu?
removes the Jade when getting hit, making it a much better defense.
Bufflamışlar bildiğim bunu
Next
bayağı.
up, let's talk about accuracy. Accuracy was always intended to be something that warriors
Ama
didn't need to care
totemler
about
o
very
kadar
much so long
yavaş
as they're in
kes
close
atıyor
combat.
ki.
But
Oynanır
unfortunately,
mı
that's
ki ya
not currently the
totem?
case. This was particularly annoying with skills like
Karın
Bone
ağrısı
Shatter,
gibi
which you certainly
totemler
don't
ya.
want to mess with.
Bufflara
So
rağmen
we significantly buffed your chance to hit at close ranges when you don't have much accuracy. Warriors shouldn't require any accuracy investment in order to hit with close range attacks now. We also wanted to improve armor. Now, one of the major
Armor'da
weaknesses of armor
değişiklik
is the
var.
inability to defend against elemental damage. In order to mitigate this, we're adding a lot more of the stat that allows your armor to defend against elemental damage. It's now available on items and in a lot more places on the passive tree.
Exile 1'deki en büyük defanslardan bir tanesini buraya
One of the most important
getirmişler.
improvements we made in
En
030
büyük.
is to declunk the action and flow of shooting crossbows.
Kısaca
You can now
yediğiniz
reload
hasarı
crossbows without any
2-0
movement penalty.
siliyorsunuz abi. 1000 damage yiyorsanız
But not
10
only that,
damage
all
düşüyor.
skills that can be used while
Birazdan
moving now slow you
detayları
for a shorter
anlatırım.
amount of time. This change benefits everyone, not just crossbow skills. With both of these changes put together, the run and gun
Crossbow
playstyle
skill'leri
feels
de
much
bayağı
better.
buff attık diyor. Özellikle
It's
doldurma
hard to
hızı
explain how
diyor.
important this change is for the
Videoda
feel of
tam
the class.
gözüküyor mu ya doldurma
The
hızı?
Mercenary is also a good chance to talk about how we're rebalancing to make comboing skills much better. Take Shock, for example. It buffs damage and lasts 4 seconds right
Ailment'lar
now.
artık daha
But that
etkili
isn't really
diyor.
giving you enough time
Top,
to take advantage of it.
Ignite.
If you're going to add a lightning skill into a build that
Freeze
otherwise wouldn't
falan.
use one, we need to make mechanics like this much better. So we've increased shock duration on monsters to last 8 seconds. And skills like Plasma Blast, which are intended to be good at shocking enemies, now increase the damage bonus by a lot more. You'll find
Şokladığında
changes
daha
like
uzun
this all
süre
around the game.
şoklayacaksın artık. Ve
Shell now
plazma
lasts 8
blast
seconds,
şoklanan
giving you more of a
yaratıkları daha
reason to
fazla
weave in
vuracak.
cold damage. Freezing skills are better at freezing. Burning skills need to cause burns that last longer. But making skills like Permafrost Bolts and Incendiary Shot double down on
Ailment'ler
how
daha
they're supposed to be
efektif.
used, it makes using them in your build alongside other skills much more likely. We're also making sure to buff specific combos too. The freeze explosions from frag rounds now chain to nearby enemies,
Crossbow da güzel gözüküyor ya.
and using high velocity rounds with armor break will now fragment the opponent's armor. This causes monsters to take a portion
Bu
of
lig
high
o
velocity
zaman
rounds
John
damage
Wick
with
mi
every
oldu?
subsequent hit, even tiny pellets. So that means following it with a shotgun blast is way more effective. Now there's a lot more buffs to crossbow skills, but for now I'm just going to talk about the new one we added, the Mortar Cannon. This one lets you socket any grenade skill, and using it will summon a cannon which loads and then fires the grenade you choose.
Allah Allah. Totem dikip totemle atabileceğiz skill'leri.
Another issue on the mercenary were banners.
Mercenary
They were just not very
skill'lerini.
good, so we're doing a big upgrade to them. They now
Biriyle
last
gaz
longer,
grenade
don't
at,
disappear when moving
diğeriyle
out of them,
patlat.
and we removed the Valor
Oo.
mechanic. They now just give a much more consistent and stronger buff, and you can use them when you get enough glory.
İki skill'i
On which
kombolayacaksan
one of the
birini
main
toteme
focuses was
attı.
making various minion types more useful to use together. Melee minions in particular were just not that great compared to ranged ones.
Minion'larda
As a
çok büyük
starting
sorun
point, we just
vardı.
straight up removed the requirement for minions to have accuracy. Attack
Minion'ların
minions now
vurma
always hit,
sorunu
which
vardı.
makes them way better.
Hit tutturma.
Brutes got some good numeric buffs, but
Onu
we also added a new
düzeltiyor.
command skill where they do a war cry that intimidates enemies and detonates any frozen monsters and allies around you in a big cold explosion.
Skeletal vurup artık intimidate edecek.
We've also
%10 daha
changed the
fazla
Frost
hasar
Mage's
atacak
command
yani
skill to an
yaratığa.
ability that adds ice armor to
Ve
your other minions,
öldüğünde
adding a layer of
patlayacak.
defense. And it makes them deal cold damage back to the attacker as well. The ice armor also makes the minion count as frozen, so the Brute's war cry can detonate them too.
Minion'lar artık hayvan
An
gibi
Earth was
freeze
changed to
atıyor.
work on corpses of your
O
dead
skeletal
skeletons, allowing you to
Frost
summon the
Mage'ler.
minions more easily in boss fights. And they also got a new jump ability, allowing
Biraz
them
da
to get into combat
akılları var
faster.
gibi koşuyorlar ha. Eskiden böyle değildi sanki.
Ray's Spectre was also feeling pretty weak for the spirit cost they have.
Reis
To be honest, we
Spectre'lerin
were a little
spirit
afraid of these
kostları
when we first
düşmüş.
balanced them. We've both decreased the spirit cost for a large range of monsters, and have significantly increased Spectre damage too. They should feel a lot more impactful.
Daha uzağa vurabilecek artık Spectre'ler.
There's
Oha
also a lot
oğlum
of
nereye
new
vurdu
spellcaster
bu?
weapons with newer cold
Ekran
skills.
dışına vurdu.
But I'll just talk about one of them that I thought was particularly cool. The Reaping Staff
Reaping
is
Staff
actually
diye
a
ayrı
wicked
bir
scythe
staff
that gives
gelmiş.
you a new ability
Onun
called
da
Reap.
özel skill'i gelmiş.
When an enemy is
Reap.
low in life, you can dash forward and rake enemies with the scythe to cull them instantly,
İleriye
healing you.
doğru dash atıp
You can also
atıyorsun.
inflict critical weakness on
ve
enemies too.
Killing Strike atıyorsun.
Now, there's a lot of balance changes in the
Ama
Witcher's
ondan
ascendancy
önemlisi
classes, but
critical
I'll just talk
weakness
about two of them for
atıyorsun.
now.
Daha fazla crit
On the Blood
yemelerini
Mage, you were previously
sağlıyorsun.
required to spend your first points on Sanguimancy, which really was supposed to be the downside for being able to access the powerful abilities on the rest of the class. In order to make picking the Blood Mage a better early
Blood
option, we
Mage'in
made
artık ilk
Sanguimancy
pointine
free,
otomatik
unlocking the
gidecek.
power of the rest of the class immediately.
Ayrı bir skip point
On the
harcamayacağız.
Infernalist, the Demon form wasn't something people were really using because you lost your weapon stats while transformed. Well, you no longer do. So it's a much better
Infernalist
option
artık weapon kullanabileceğiz. Infernalist eskiden weapon
now. On the
kullanamıyordu.
Monk, the wind skills needed a big upgrade for sure. Staggering Palm can now stack up its duration if you use the skill multiple times in a row. So you can keep the effect of all your skills throwing up wind much more easily.
Oğlum çok fena buff'lar anlatıyorlar lan.
Wind Blast had the purpose of building up to dazing an enemy, but dazing just wasn't worth all that effort. Now it just dazes on hit, meaning a single Wind Blast will make all your skills stun enemies more easily. Following up with Vaulting Impact on a dazed enemy previously did a bunch of stun. Now it allows you to break your enemy's stance. When their stance is broken, following up with a fast attack will do way more damage. A cool build that certain people always enjoyed in PoE 1 was hand-to-hand combat.
Oğlum bana
But until now,
Mercenary
we
çok
just
iyi
didn't have
durdu
a real
ya.
way to make it viable.
Ama Warrior'ın o Volcanic
Well,
Fissure'da
that
çok
changes
iyi
now.
gözüktü.
The monk, as a true martial artist, now has the
Oğlum bal
ability to learn the hollow
gelmiş.
palm technique,
Muhammed
a
Ali.
keystone that lets you use all quarterstaff skills while unarmed. All quarterstaff attacks now
Ama
have a special
değişmiş lan.
unarmed version, and you get further bonuses to all your attacks from stacking energy shield and
Yumrukla
evasion on your
vuruyor.
character.
Eğer iki elinde boşsa Quarterstaff
A new
takmışsın
keystone
gibi
we also added to the
gözüküyor.
monk section of the
Lan
tree
geri
is
al.
Walker of the Wilds. This changes Mana Leech to work with elemental damage instead of physical,
Manaliş ve
which is pretty
Cover
useful for all those elemental attacks the monk has. But it works well for the ranger
Şeyin
too.
ya Amazon'un klasında olan şeyi genele
Now, one of the least
getirmişler.
used ascendancy class in the
Skill'leri
game is the Acolyte of Chayula, so we knew we needed to make some changes here.
Oğlum
One
yumruk
of the key
getirmişler ya.
things we had to do was
Aha,
make the
yayın
chaos damage
donuyor.
that the Acolyte can do much more useful. So we've added a new skill allowing chaos damage to ignite,
Acolyte
shock,
Chayula
chill,
oyunun en az
and
oynanan
freeze,
klasıydı. O
embracing
yüzden
the elemental
buffladık
prowess of
diyor.
the monk in a truly chaotic fashion. In
Kaos
addition, we can
demeç
make all of
vurduğunda
his chaos
priz
damage
atacak mı
leech.
yazıyordu? Doğru mu gördüm?
And we've buffed Into the Breach and Embrace the Darkness by moving the effects of the 4-point nodes into the base skills.
Kaos
He
demeç
also
atınca
gains a new
priz
notable
atıyor
Grasp
yazıyordu.
of the Void,
Çok
which leaves
atıyor.
void illusions behind you as you
Ignite
dodge
atıyor
roll.
yazıyordu
If they're
sanki.
killed, they do massive explosions of darkness, dealing damage to everything in sight.
Void atıyor artık yerlere
Now let's talk about
bırakıyor.
sorceress skills. One of the things we wanted to improve on the Sorc is the ability to use multiple elements together more effectively. Now, this might seem small, but one of the things pushing you towards using a single element is debuffs like elemental curses, which lower resistances of a single element. In order to fix that, we're making quite a lot of game-wide changes to these kinds of mechanics to broaden what they apply to. So for example, there's no longer 3 curses for fire, ice, and lightning. Instead, there's just a single curse that buffs all 3 at the same time.
Artık bir tane curse var. Elemental
And things
bitmesiyle
like
beraber
Frostbomb, which give you cold exposure,
bütün
now give
resistlerini
elemental
düşürüyorsun.
exposure. You can use it to buff any of your other skills.
Tek tek
We also want to
fire
make
için
switching
ayrı,
between different
cold
weapon
için
sets
ayrı,
smoother, so you can use different
curse
elemental staves more
kullanmayacak.
effectively. To do that, we've removed the weapon switch time, and now happens instantly. This applies game-wide too.
Weapon'lar artık yanlış anlamadıysam direkt
Now we didn't just want to
değişecek.
stop there. We
Animasyon
wanted to add some
olmayacak
specific
artık dedi.
mechanics that work
Yanlış
between different
anlamadıysam.
elements, and that's where elemental infusions come in. Certain skills can now
Aptal
drop
bir
elemental
animasyon giriyordu
infusions.
ya.
For example,
Götünden
when
silah
a frostbomb
çıkarıyordu.
explodes, it leaves behind a cold infusion on the ground. After picking it up, you can spend it on one of any number of different skills to transform how they work. Spark will create a nova of cold-infused projectiles. Ice Nova will leave a chilled area on the ground. And we also added a new low-level skill that fires ice shards. Use it with cold infusion though, and the ice shards will explode.
Bol
All
skill'lerine
of
bayağı
Storms
buff
now generates
atmışlar.
lightning infusions when you cast enough spells near it.
Dediklerine göre tabii.
And that's all spells, by the way, not just lightning.
Damage
Once you have
buff'ından
one, you
ziyade
could
biraz
cast a
da
lightning flame wall,
oynanışlarını
which adds both fire
değiştirmişler.
and lightning damage to all the projectiles that pass through it. Or power up Ember Fusillade with lightning, which will generate arcs to nearby enemies as each fireball hits. Or maybe go lightning on lightning with arc. This skill is now a projectile, and by infusing it, you can go full Palpatine.
Oğlum var ya.
Get fire infusions by blowing up monsters with living bomb. Then use them with Comet to summon a giant fire meteor from the sky.
Bu da fena
Or use it with
duruyor ya.
Firestorm, which transforms it from a small area into a much bigger one. Firestorm is unique in that it can be infused by multiple different elements at the same time.
Oğlum
Add
hepsi
an
çok
ice
güzel
infusion to rain down
gözüküyor.
ice at the same time as the fire. And add lightning to add deadly strikes from the heavens into the mix.
Ne pis vuruyor oğlum. Arka
Or
bak
use it
ne
with all
pis
3
vurdu
to
oğlum
generate a
arka.
storm that is truly apocalyptic. Cold Snap has been simply turned into Snap. Previously you could use it to shatter ice, but now it works to detonate all of the different elemental ailments and makes them leave behind infusions. And just like how you could previously use it on Frostbolt, you can now also use it on Orb of Storms and Solar Orb to detonate those as well, which means you can create many infusions at once. We also have a Spirit Reservation skill and a support gem to help generate them too. On the passive tree, we've added quite a few new keystones to the Sorceress section. Here are a couple of examples. The Black Flame Covenant keystone converts your fire spells to chaos and causes your ignites to deal chaos damage. Your fire spells and ignites will also turn purple. The Ritual Cadence keystone causes your invocation skills to trigger more times, but makes them trigger periodically
Oğlum
over a longer
Sorceress da
duration
fena
instead of one.
duruyor ya.
Great for those auto bomber builds. Now, in addition to skill changes, we've added a lot more options for the passive tree for each class.
Bütün
Overall, there are more than
skill'leri
100 new
kaosa
notables on the
çeviren
tree,
o
usually around 20 per
keystone ne
class,
oğlum
along
öyle
with
ya.
smaller clusters as well. Check out the old version, and here's the new version.
Oo, daha da
It's a lot
karışık
more
oldu.
dense, and there's
Daha
more
da
interesting
karışık
nodes than
oldu.
before.
Yeni
Now, we
oyuncu bunu
probably can't go
beğendi.
through too many of these in the live stream, so I'll just show you one from each class's area of the tree. We tried to be a lot more thematic with the new nodes. So for example, the Molten One's Gift. It lets the benefit of Armor Break apply to your fire damage. Or how about Last Stand, which gives you lots of stats as your situation becomes more and more desperate.
Surrounded etrafın
A lot of
çevrili
these have
kendini,
themes
değil mi?
aligning
Doğru.
with ascendancy classes. Like for the Gemling Legionnaire, for example. You have crystallized immunities, which makes you immune to different status ailments, depending on which support gem color you have socketed the most.
Abi immun oluyor şaka gibi.
Another ascendancy class aligned notable is Sanguimatic Rituals. It allows arcane surges to generate life instead of
Arcane
mana,
Surge
unlocking
artık
that
life
support
regen
gem to be used with
yapacak
the
diyor.
Blood Mage
Mana
ascendancy.
regen yerine. Her yerden de Arcane
In the
Surge
Sorc
efekt
area, you'll find
alacaksın.
these
Öküz gibi
Archon
life
nodes that allow you
regen.
to convert
Onunu
all of your
alacağız
elemental
yine.
damage to a specific element. You
Ascendancy'de de
become a
Arcane
Lightning
Surge
Archon when you
efekt var.
spend enough mana, after which all your skills will be converted to lightning, and you will do extra lightning damage as well. We have ones for cold and fire too, with different triggers. Here's
Oğlum
another cool
yanına da
one.
bir RF gelse
Elemental
var ya.
Practitioner gives crit bonuses if you've triggered a skill recently, while also making crits generate more energy for triggers.
%40 nedir ya?
Or maybe you'd like the Great Boar. It gives you a reason to stack dexterity to make
Ha,
you
bu çok.
tougher,
Ha,
giving a
yok,
bonus to
life
life and stone
veriyor.
threshold.
Oha life veren
Or the
tek
Cunning Fox.
point
It
o.
straight up gives you 5% quality
Dexterity
to all
başına
your
life
gems.
veriyor lan. 5 life
Now
bile
another major change is
koymuyorlardı
attribute
Tree'ye.
requirements.
4
We felt like
dexterity
players
başına
probably
life
had a
veriyor
few too many
artık.
nodes and attributes and not enough and interesting passives.
Coşurtu,
So we lowered
life
attribute
koymuşlar
requirements by
Tree'ye.
25% across the board. That means you'll have more points to spend on
Skill'lerin
interesting notables
STR
rather than just needing to
gereksinimini
allocate more
düşürmüşler.
strength, dex, and int. Now there are way more changes than just these. These are just some of the cooler ones we wanted to show off, but I'd say that's just about enough for now. We're not even half done yet. So I think it's time that we talk about the League, the rise of the Abyssal. And to do that, I'd like to hand things over to Mark.
As you just saw, even though there are major changes to the campaign for this
Oğlum daha
update, we
şimdiden
want to make
bildürünü
sure that
yedin. Dur
every
ya,
time you
dur
come
ilk
back
yok.
for an expansion, each area feels different with something extra going on. It is really important to make sure your experience when returning between expansions is fresh and filled with new content. And the way we did this was through leagues. Every expansion we make has a league,
Artık
which not
standart
only has a
oynayanlar
fresh economy,
content
but
alamayacak mı
also has
dedi?
new content
Doğru mu anladım?
exclusively available in that league. So, let's delve into the details of what
Standart
Path of Exile
oynayanlar
2's
content'i
first
göremeyecek
official
mi
league
hepsi?
is bringing to the table. The Abyssal are a race that have mastery of forbidden magics and necromancy.
Çok
They
ya.
were thought to be
Herkes
extinct,
oynayacak o zaman.
but have merely been biding their
Bol
time
bir birey
underground.
sistemi.
You first encounter signs of the Abyssal in Clairfell, where you discover that during the night, weaker members of the Undead Legion have been attacking the encampment. The townsfolk require your help to investigate where the monsters are coming from and put a stop to their
Mortimer'le
attacks.
konuşup Abyss contentine başlayabiliyoruz direkt Akbir'de. Abyss content'te ayrı bir content.
As you
Rogue
proceed
Exile
through
gibi.
Rayclass,
Biriç
you'll
gibi.
find fissures in the earth connected to larger pits. The monsters normally inhabiting the area are being affected by it, harmed by it even, having their souls eaten to strengthen the Abyssal underground. As you defeat the monsters, the fissure closes and Abyssal emerge, angered by you killing their food.
Yerden böyle
Once all
yaratıklar
those
çıkacak.
fissures have
Yeşil
been
yeşil.
sealed, the pit activates, and more Abyssal pour out. This is where the
Her
larger
bir
and
pitte
more
daha
dangerous
fazla
monsters reveal
yaratılacak ve
themselves,
sırayla farklı
as
farklı
hordes of
pitler
Abyss will
olacak.
spew out
Şu
from the
mesela
pit to
pit
take your soul.
sağdaki.
If you kill a magic pack, then magic Abyssal arise. If you kill a rare, then a rare monster will emerge from the pit, having absorbed some or all of its modifiers for itself. This
Bir
means the
yaratık
monsters
kesersen
emerging
bir
will
yaratık
generally be
çıkacak
more
pitten
difficult
diyor.
and more rewarding, as
zaman
each modifier gives better
Bol
rewards.
kalın maplerde Abyss farmlamacı mı?
If you are able to kill them all, the pit will seal shut. As each pit is closed, it reveals a potential reward. Abyssal troves will rise up out of the pits, allowing
Hep
you to get some
hallettikten
epic loot.
sonra da Abyssal açılacak. Oradan da çerçöp bir şeyler
Areas
düşecek.
often contain many pits, with many fissures,
Ama
and the amount goes
videodayken
up as you
videolayın
progress through the
gösteririm
game,
orada.
getting more intense. It doesn't stop there. When monster mods are absorbed, they have a chance to become infused with the dark necromancy, transforming them into abyssal modifiers. For example, you defeat this monster with the Mana Siphoner modifier. Their soul is eaten by the pit, and a rare monster emerges. The Mana Siphoner modifier has transformed into Soul Siphoner, and is now amplified in danger and reward.
Map'te normal kestiğimiz yaratıkların özellikleri
Abyssal
Abyss'ten
pits
çıkan
also
yaratığa
interact with other monsters and
olacakmış.
mechanics. If you defeat a rogue exile that's near
Absürt bir
one,
şekilde
it'll be
güçlenecek o zaman
revived as a
Abyss'ler.
Lichborn that has multiple abyssal modifiers. Lichborn exiles even have their own unique jewel they can drop, if you are lucky enough to encounter and kill them. If an abyss
Oğlum
spawns near a
Abyss'ten
boss,
çıkan yaratığın
killing it will
üstünde
summon
şey
a
vardı lan.
gigantic
Düşüreceği
giga
item
larvae
yazıyordu.
creature.
O ne lan?
Monsters imprisoned in essences near
Boss'u
abyssal
kesin
pits are
boss'un
affected by
altında
the
bir
abyss
pit
too.
çıktı.
They will come with an additional
Oradan da
new
boss
essence
çıktı.
item
What the
that
fuck?
can be used to craft your items.
Aa, yeni
So,
craft materyali
that's your bread
geliyor
and
artık
butter of the
Abyss'le
Abyssal
beraber.
League.
Yeni craft
Kill
sistemi.
surface-dwelling
Hadi bakalım
monsters,
neymiş
kill
yeni
the
craft
emerging
sistemi.
abyssal, close the fissures, overcome pit encounters, and reap the rewards. There's a lot more to this league, however. As you complete abysses, you can find ancient pieces of bone, preserved from the remains of fallen Lichborn. These are one of the many rewards for your mission to seal the pits.
Secret ne abi
You can
ya?
use this on a rare item to imbue it with abyssal
Evet.
magic, adding a special hidden modifier to your item. But how do you reveal it? In Act 2 of the campaign, you'll encounter a new
Crafting bench
area.
mi?
This area is overrun by the Abyssal and the Lost Myth.
Bildiğin Unveil attı aynen.
After clearing
Crafting
through
bench
this
mi?
area, you'll find the Well of Souls, a giant cavity with a massive vortex of souls swirling beneath you. So
Abyss
how do you
alanına
reveal the mods on
gidiyorsun.
your Abyssal-infused items?
Well of
Obviously,
Soul'a
just throw them
geliyorsun.
in, right? Yes, that's exactly what you do.
Buradan o modu
Before
açabileceksin.
throwing it in, you are given the option of how you want to transform it, in the form of a choice of 3 different
3 tane
modifiers.
özellik gelecek, birini
Once you've
seçecek.
chosen your
Crafting
desired mod,
bench gibi.
throw it in, where it will absorb the power of the souls, and the ominous creature will then retrieve it for you. These modifiers can be ones from the core mod pool, all the way through to specialized modifiers that cannot normally appear on items. During the campaign, you can use it as a way to more easily add useful
bu ne?
existing mods,
Oradan attır,
but
oraya
during the
geri aldım,
in-game,
bir saatte
there is a
geliyor.
whole set of new and powerful mods you can add to your items. Like
Ne
this mod
gerek
for
var öyle
crossbows that allows you to
animasyonlara?
place an additional ballista
Oo,
totem,
artı bir balista ekliyor direkt. Salak
or
saçma
this
modlar
one
var.
that adds spirit to your staff,
67 spirit ekliyor staff'a.
or this one that allows you to generate more combo with your quarterstaff skills. And speaking of in-game, you can also use the system to craft
Map'lere de
waystones.
koyuyoruz.
With a preserved vertebrae fused into your waystones,
Ne
you can
verdin
get some
map'e?
new modifiers that push difficulty and rewards to new heights. Here are some examples of those mods. You always get a choice of 3, so you can avoid anything you
Oo,
don't think
rare
your character
yaratıkların
is capable of.
soul'larını çalabileceksin. Moda bak.
With this modifier, the natural inhabitants of the
Oho,
area
9
are
tane
all
pit
spawned near
ekliyor.
abysses. And there are up to
9 tane
9
o
additional
yuvarlak
abyssal pits
boşluk
in the
gibi
area,
düşünün. Oradan
making it
9
just a
tane
full-on
farklı
abyss
yaratıklar
ruckus.
çıkacağı bölüm.
Or this one,
Her
which
bir çukur
causes
bir
the
pit
final
gibi
abyssal pit
düşünün.
in the area
Ve o
to
PoE 1'de de
always
böyle.
result in a boss encounter, be it either one underground or one that emerges out.
O pitlerden
There
bazıları
are dozens
boss
of these
oluyor.
waystone modifiers in total you can
Abyss
get from this
boss'u.
crafting. That covers the new crafting mechanic.
Ama
So what's left?
tabii bunlar
Well,
map'te
we
ve
talked
Waystone'da
about how
varsa
when closing
geliyor. Bir
pits you can
anda.
get abyssal troves, but sometimes when closing an abyss, you'll reveal an underground cavern that leads to the abyssal depths. After jumping into the depths, you'll find an abyssal city, swarming with legions of the undead.
Bazı
When
pitlerde
underground,
böyle içeri
every
gireceğiz
single
ve
rare
Abyssal
abyssal enemy
City'ye
will have an
girmiş
abyssal
olacağız.
modifier.
Abyss şehrine.
And at the end of the dungeon, you'll even find a rare
Ve
with a more
içerideki
powerful
şehrin
Lichborn
sonunda
modifier.
böyle kutucuklar olacak.
Once you're able to defeat this powerful rare, you can also
Ama
find some nice rewards.
Kalın rare'lar olacak
Aside from the
sizin
entire
donunuzu
area
yırtmayı
being valuable
bekleyen.
due to the
En
abyssal
sonunda.
modifiers on the monsters, it has its own specific drops too.
Onları
One example is a
kesebilirsen
set of
açıyorsun.
lineage supports that can rarely be found in these depths,
Ve
like
hiçbir şey
Kurgle's
düşmüyor.
Leash.
Ha,
This support empowers
özel
both you and your
support
minions when
gemler
you command
demiştim ya,
them,
lineage
granting
support
unholy
gemler.
might to you both.
Kalın support gemler. Bunlar bir tanesi buradan düşüyor.
Another depth-specific outcome is a set of omen-like items that amplify your abyssal crafting. Additionally, we're adding some new socketables that can drop from the abyssal depths. Take Ulaman's Gaze, which can be socketed into your armor.
Gerilediğin
These are a
enemilere
bit
karşı
special
crit
in that you can
şansın
only
nasıl
have one
oluyor?
equipped at a time, but give some
Boss'a
pretty
bir kez
powerful
feri
effects.
atacaksın, sonra bir vuracaksın
Think of
abi.
them as almost a unique socketable for your equipment. In the endgame, where you can still find depths, you also start to find a different type of underground chamber. In these areas, you'll find an ancient spire, a device being used by commanders of the abyssal factions
Abyss'lerinde
to
boss'u
plunge
var.
Rayclast into a lightless void.
Expedition'ın boss'u olduğu gibi, bir için boss'u
Your
olduğu
goal
gibi.
is simple.
Bunu farmlayacağız
Kill this
Abyss'te de.
commander and destroy the spire.
Tasko.
There are 4 bosses in the Abyss League, and there are some pretty cool uniques available from them.
Poketi olan
An
botlar
example is this
geliyor. Hem de
belt,
2 tane.
Darkness Enthroned.
Hem de
It has 2
%80
sockets.
efektli.
But hold on, socketables don't work on belts.
Buna
Well,
artı bir
this belt has a special
projektayla
mod that allows it to
soketi
count as a
koysan,
different slot for the purpose of
artı bir
socketables.
artı 1 artı 4 mü verecek? What the
This
fuck
one,
is
for
going
example,
on?
counts as a helmet. I kind of want one that counts as a
Çıkar
body
mı?
armor. I
Yok.
wonder how rare that one is. You can also find
Roket
this
koydu
unique
oğlum
jewel,
direkt.
Undying Hate. This jewel
Aman
transforms part of your passive skill tree into an abyssal version.
Hayda. Timeless
and has
level'lar
multiple
geldi.
The deeper it goes, the
Gel
more
bir
of
de
your
buradan
passive tree
ya.
is affected, allowing you
Herhangi
to
bir
fulfill
seriye
your fantasy
koyduğunda
of becoming part
bütün
Abyssal Lich.
içerideki şeyler değişiyor. Pointler
Now, the
değişiyor.
last thing that
Tamamen
Abyssal
hasar
commanders can
kadar
drop
değişiyor.
is a
Sayısıyla
finger of the
alakalı değil.
Lich.
Nereden
But what
bulacaktım
use do you
bunu?
have with a random undead finger? Well, the next
İnşallah
time
bir
you
tane
return to the
işsizin
Well
biri
of
site
Souls
çıkarırsa oradan
with the finger in
bulacak.
your
Site
inventory,
çıkarmazsa
your character will almost feel compelled. To do what, though, you might ask? To jump in.
o çok ayran
The
verir.
items you threw in came back
Legion
more
Ligi
powerful,
geldiğinde ligin
right?
sonunda
So,
size
what's the
çıkmıştı.
worst that could happen? Well, you will just have to find that one out for yourself. Along with the introduction of Act 4 and the interlude, we will be adding 25 new in-game maps. These maps will contain all the new
25 tane
monsters and
yeni
bosses we're
endgame
adding,
map'i var artık.
improving variety and giving you
Oy, map'i
opportunities
var.
to experience the new boss fights many times.
Abi biraz daha düz
Let's take a
mapler.
look at some
Biraz daha
examples.
düz map.
Rock Pools is a map where you explore a shallow rocky coastline, surrounded by
En
coral
olmadı
and filled with
istediğimiz map'e
sirens.
girebilelim ya. Bana
At
dayatma
the end is
TikTok
a
mapleri
giant
ya.
goblin king boss, ready to eat sulfite and squish you like a bug.
Olsa bak ya.
Holton is an Ezomite township which has seen better days. Explore and clear the township to find a gothic, reaper-like boss with the ability to manipulate storms and fry you with both lightning and wither you with chaos.
Map posuna bakar mısın ya?
Given some of the new bosses added are a bit more epic, such as the Act boss and final bosses of each interlude part, it would be a
Oğlum bu
bit of
nasıl
a waste to
Xbox
just
ya?
use them as
Hak
regular map
4'te
bosses.
mahvolacağız ya.
Instead, we'll be adding some
Cover
new
yok.
mechanics to the Atlas that use them.
Cover göremiyorum.
These start
Ha,
appearing
varmış.
pretty
Şu
fast
an-
into the endgame and will help bridge the gap until you do your pinnacle bosses. In the desert biome, you can encounter a wild sandstorm. 3 maps around the sandstorm contain a device you must activate. Upon doing this, the sandstorm's magic is disrupted, revealing the map inside and allowing you to access it and find the cause. This presents itself in the form of a boss, similar to the existing Citadel bosses. This boss is a Faradin Swordmaster, who has been blessed with the power of a time gem,
Bu da
allowing him to
endgame
take
boss'u.
his swordsmanship to the next level by replicating himself, maneuvering
Faradin'in
rapidly,
kız
and severing
kardeşiymiş.
the fabric of time itself with his
boss'u.
powerful slashes. In the water biome, you'll encounter a giant maelstrom, where one of the maps surrounding the water biome connects to it, but the connection is obscured. You must run the maps nearby, hoping to find a beacon, which will remove the maelstrom and reveal the connection to that map.
Lan lafın gelişi dedim. Amcası
Another
diyelim. Ne
example is
fark
this
eder?
Vaal vault in the mountain biome. But how do we get inside? Running the adjacent maps to it will yield a key, which you can then use to gain access to this vault. Or, you could just trade for one, I guess. Use the key to dispel the powerful force field surrounding it, leading to the Vaal elite and their rewards inside.
Endgame haritalarında böyle garip
These all
garip şeyler
contain Uber
çıkacak
versions of the Act
artık.
4 boss
Kum fırtınası,
and the bosses
Jahat
at the end of
fırtınası
each part of the
bilmem ne.
interlude.
Bunların da özel
And each have
bossları
their
var.
own exclusive drop pool of new lineage supports.
Özel fragmentle
Which,
falan
as Jonathan
geleceğiz.
spoke about earlier, are powerful support gems that modify your skills in pretty crazy ways.
Endgame'i
As
yeni
an example of a
çeşitlilik.
lineage support which can come from the Faradin Swordmaster
Default
mentioned
Fate
earlier,
ne abi ya?
we have Garukhan's Resolve, which causes your critical strikes to fork, but requires some mobility on your part to properly enable. From the boss sealed in the Vaal Vault, we have Paquate's Pact, which supports your war cries,
Range'in
causing them to
%25
inflict
kadar
massive amounts of
corrupted blood,
corrupted blood at the cost of
Physical
your own
damage
life.
per second vurur diyor.
Additionally,
Çok fena.
some maps can now spawn summoning circles, a room resembling an Ezomite henge. Activating this henge will spawn bosses. It's as simple as that. We'll also be making changes to how affixes and waystones work, as the current prefixes equals good, suffixes equals bad iteration isn't quite hitting the mark. We tried something new here in Path of Exile 2, but after seeing the feedback we decided we actually liked what we had in Path of Exile 1 more. Like Path of Exile 1, each affix will now be both difficult and rewarding. Waystone mods now grant an increase in the number of waystones dropped and an additional
Artık
specific
bütün
upside
modlar
attached to it. This means
kötü
as you
mod.
roll your map, they will continue to
Ama
get more difficult
her gelen
and more
kötü mod
rewarding, and allow
fazladan
you to
rarity,
customize the
pack size
difficulty
ve
and
kuant
rewards of your
anlamına
maps
gelecek.
better.
Artık sufiksler
For
kötü,
example,
prefiksler iyi
the
diye bir şey yok.
Frostbitten mod, which
Bütün
causes
modlar
enemies to
kötü,
deal
çok
cold
güzel
damage,
abi bu.
also
Ne
increases the
kadar
rarity
zor
of
ve o
items
kadar
dropped as its
fazla
upside.
rarity'li mi?
Whereas the of Venom
Mükemmel.
suffix
Beto
modifier,
Exile 1'deki
which
gibi.
causes enemies to poison on hit, has the upside of granting increased pack
Bak
size.
ne oldu? Bir mod ekledi. Pack size
Some
arttı.
maps will
Drop
end up
şans
having a
arttı.
lot of rarity, some a lot of pack size, and
Bazıları
others will
rarity
just have
veriyor,
a mixture
bazıları
of
kuant
everything.
veriyor, bazıları pack size veriyor. Çok
Due to
güzel
now
oldu.
having more modifiers granting difficulty, we will of course be
Lan
reducing
Rare
the difficulty
Monster'lı
per
map
modifier
arıyorduk
to
satın
account
almaya
for this.
çalışıyorduk. Yok Jart modu
So,
olan,
that's your
Esans
Atlas,
modu olan
maps,
map
and
arıyorduk,
waystones.
satın alıyorduk.
But what about Breach, Ritual, Pinnacle content,
iyi oldu
and
bu.
others of the sort?
Salak saçma
We're
mapleri
making some
100,
changes
200,
around this
300
too.
exa veriyorduk.
The first change is that you'll now be able to invest 2 points into your specific League Atlas trees before having to run the Pinnacle content. There will be a specific objective for each type of content which grants you those points. For example, in the case of Delirium,
Oğlum ne güzel
it's simple.
skill lan volkanik
You just need
gücü.
to find and kill one of the bosses in a map, Omniphobia or Kosis.
Herhangi bir boss'u
The rest of the points for each
map'te
content
kesersen
come from the Pinnacle
simülakrum
content.
boss'unu direkt
But we're
point
making some
alacaksın.
changes to accessibility here too. Currently,
Bir de
access
yine
to
aynı
most Pinnacle
küçücük-
content requires the same key at the easiest and most difficult version of the content. This creates a negative feeling where at lower difficulties, instead of wanting to run the content, you're often better off just selling it to someone who can run it at maximum difficulty. To address this, each content will now drop splinters, which will not form into singular items. Instead of using the singular combined item in the realm gate, you can now just bring your splinters. Upon inserting the splinters into the realm gate, an interface will appear, allowing you to pick your difficulty, and you'll notice each difficulty has a different entry cost. This means if you want to run easier difficulties, it costs less,
Bir daha
which
point
also
geri
allows
al,
you to run this
point
content much
fazladan
sooner
ver
into the
yapmıyoruz.
endgame. Because these encounters now just require splinters, their corresponding Atlas tree no longer affects the difficulty of them, and has been changed to purely affect the content and maps on the Atlas. The Arbiter of Ash works a bit differently.
Amele gibi
Instead of
uğraşmayacağız
requiring
artık.
splinters, he still needs crisis fragments. We now have only 2 difficulties of the Arbiter. The first, requiring the existing fragments obtained from citadels. The
Artık
second,
2 tane
Uber
zorluk
Arbiter,
aşaması var
requires
Arbiter'in.
calamity fragments. These come from citadel bosses also, but only once you've allocated the maximum number of points in your boss Atlas tree, ensuring those citadels are at their highest difficulty level. Since we're talking about pinnacle
Kalın
content,
arbiter,
we
ince
also
arbiter,
felt that the leveling
zayıf
curve in the
arbiter.
late game was a bit too steep. We've smoothed this out a bit so that it's easier to get to the mid-90s. We've also added some new in-game unique items. Let's take a look at a couple.
Oğlum yayın kaç
Thunderfist is a
saattir
pair of
devam
gloves
ediyor.
that
Bir dünya
grants
şey
crackling
getiriyorlar.
palm, a skill which empowers your unarmed attacks, granting the ability to call down the storms themselves on enemies you hit. Put simply, literally every monster you hit with your unarmed skills will be struck by powerful lightning.
Yumrukla
Pair
vurursan
this
abi
with the
daha fazla
aforementioned hollow
vuracağım
palm
diyor.
technique to embrace your true unarmed prowess in combat.
Çünkü Muhammed Ali'yi aldım.
Another
Öyle
unique
holo
we're
palm.
adding is Henekura's Sight. Equip this amulet to be granted the power of the Mother of Death herself.
Future pes ne
This is
acaba?
reflected by granting you a skill called Foresight. While you have Foresight, your dodge roll no longer avoids hits. But instead, being hit while dodge rolling restores you to full life and makes you unable to die for a brief period of time. You'll notice when this does occur, a copy of your character appears and takes the
Doç
full
rol
damage.
attığında artık damage
This is you
yemeyecek
seeing
misin
that
diyor.
future, as if you hadn't been wearing the amulet. Ultimately, your in-game experience should be more streamlined. With new content to find, you'll be able to invest in your Atlas tree
Oğlum,
sooner,
Doç rol atınca harbi
engage with
canı
pinnacle content
fullendi.
faster, have less FOMO running said pinnacle content, reach higher levels easier, and do all of that while finding many new chase endgame items. Talking about finding items is one thing, but what about crafting them?
Hadi bakalım craft
We've
sistemi.
taken a step back and looked at some of our crafting systems to make some notable improvements. Let's start with essences. which suffered from an issue where the regular essences were effectively useless and didn't give players the tools or excitement that a
Esanslar
crafting
bok
system
gibi
should provide.
gidiyor.
To alleviate these concerns,
Biz de onları
essences are
biraz
being
değiştirmeye
changed in a
karar
few
verdik.
ways. Firstly, they're being changed to function like regals and add specific modifiers with specific values, meaning you
Regal
know
atıyorsun
exactly what
bildiğin
you're going to
artık.
get.
Tamam,
We
normalde
found
öyleyiz
that players
zaten.
were often bottlenecked by regal orbs when crafting in the campaign, so this helps to fill that gap,
Greater'ı
allowing you to
ekstra
better upgrade your
dönüştürüyor.
items. For example, this lesser essence of flames, which will be able to add a flat amount of fire damage to your magic martial weapons. Secondly, we're adding many more tiers. That lesser essence of flames, for example, has a regular variant and a greater variant too, adding even more fire damage with each upgrade.
Abi çok mu zor bir
The
crafting
intention of
konusunda?
this is so that when you find one early on, you don't worry about holding onto it till later to use on a higher level item. You should feel free to use them as they come to get powerful upgrades during the campaign. Lastly, our highest tier of essences, now called perfect essences,
Perfect ne yapıyor?
will function like a chaos
Oo,
orb instead of a
bir
regal.
mod siliyor,
So
bir
it
mod
will replace
ekliyor.
one of the modifiers on your rare items with the
Herhangi bir modu
specified mod,
siliyor. Bu
such
modu
as
da
this
ekliyor.
perfect
Üstünde
essence
yazan
of
modu.
flames. You'll notice this one doesn't just
Ama
add
bunlar
flat
ama
fire
50
damage like the
divine
ones
olur.
before it. The perfect essences often give something a bit
Omenler de
different,
öyleydi ya.
with some opportunities to be pretty damn powerful.
Omenler de başta çok
There are
iyiydi
many different
ama
essences, each
çok
with many
pahalıydı.
tiers,
Çok nadir
covering many
düşüyordu.
of the more core
İnşallah
modifiers you'd
fazla
want on items
düşüyordur.
early on, through to chase specialized ones for in-game. Speaking of in-game, we really wanted to expand our crafting options for late in-game
pahalı
crafting
oluyor ya
projects. You might have noticed that at in-game, you get way too many transmutes. Wouldn't it be nice if some of those didn't drop, but instead you got something a little more powerful? At higher levels, you can now find Greater Orb of Transmutation and Perfect Orb of Transmutation. These can be used on normal items to upgrade them to magic, ensuring that the modifier generated is of a minimum level. This is similar to how you find higher tier items on the ground, but for crafting. These higher tiers will also exist for Orb of Augmentation, Regal Orb,
Anlamadım la.
Exalted Orb, and Chaos Orb, meaning you can get all
Ne
of the orbs
farkları var?
required to take your item from normal rarity to a fully completed rare with guaranteed high tier
Gelecek
mods.
modun yüksek tier gelmesini
On top of these
sağlıyor.
new core crafting currencies, we wanted to
yine
make sure there are
randomly
powerful
katan
crafting
modlar
bases
geliyor
to
ki.
use them on. Now in in-game,
Ya
you can
iyi
start
de
to find
böyle-
exceptional items. These are items that drop at normal rarity
Yani
and are perfect for your
tam
from-scratch crafting
tuzlu
projects.
yerinde değil gibi hani.
They can come with extra quality, up to 30%, or an additional socket to use your crafting socketables in. And yes, they can be corrupted for yet another socket. You can also get exceptional unique items. To add even further to your crafting arsenal, we've added a whole suite of new omens to ritual content, and removed some of the more unimpactful ones that weren't being used. Some of the new omens include the Omen of the Ancients,
Omen of
which will
the
cause your
Ancient.
next orb of chance to not destroy the item, but generate a random unique of the same class. Or the Omen of
%100 unique
Sanctification,
yapıyor.
which
Vay
is my
babanın
new favorite.
kemiğine.
This will cause your next divine orb used on a rare item to
Sanctify
reroll
ne?
the values of its modifiers, allowing it to exceed the normal minimum and maximum values, raising the ceiling on the new most powerful rare items in the game. This omen will also cause your item to become sanctified. Sanctified items cannot be crafted, just like corrupted ones, so consider carefully when you use this.
Ne yaptık ki oğlum Sanctify
Another is the
atınca?
Omen of Chaotic Monsters,
Kaçırdım orayı.
which will cause
Sanctify
your
atınca
next
ne
Chaos
yaptı?
Orb to reroll all modifiers on a Waystone, allowing you to
yüksek
fix your
rolü
maps if you
gelmesini
get some
sağlıyor sanırım.
modifiers that are not feasible for your build. Besides these examples, there is a huge variety of new omens for you to discover
Max
in your ritual
yüzdeliği
encounters.
arttırıyor.
With the release of Act 4, notably
Artı
taking
4
place in the
fire
Karuri
veriyorsa artı 6'ya
archipelago,
mı çıkaracak
you'll
o
be able
zaman?
to now find a new
Yok artı
currency
5
item,
oluyor %100
Henikora's Lock. Henikora,
Valide de
the
100.
Karuri goddess of death, has the power of foresight and is able to see many futures,
Yine Kora da
including
geldi.
the outcome of your next craft.
PoE Exile
So,
1'deki en pahalı
imbuing her lock
itemlerden
onto
bir
an
tanesi.
item gives you that same power too.
Geleceği gösteriyor bu item.
For example, you'll know whether or not to use an Exalted Orb on your item, as you will
Herhangi
know
bir yine
exactly
kora
what the
bastın.
outcome is.
Exalt attığında
So, with all these
gelecek
new crafting
modifier'i
improvements,
gelmeden
it's
gösteriyor.
safe to say you're going to be making some epic items,
Beğenmezsen
and
geri
not
alabiliyorsun
necessarily just ones for yourself. So given that, it's time to talk about a massive one.
Aha, en
Trade.
önemlisi bu. En önemlisi bu.
It's finally here. The moment we've all been waiting for. Fully asynchronous trade.
Çok beklediğiniz
Over the
kısım
years, the way
artık
players trade
geldi
with each
diyor.
other in Path of Exile 1 has morphed from using the forums through to the in-game
Ananı
chat,
avradın, ne çileler çektik
all the way through
buralarda.
to using the website.
Oy!
These systems, in all their iterations, worked for a while, but with each iteration, new problems eventually reveal
Lan
themselves.
mükemmel ya.
Be it requiring you to be in your hideout too
İşte bu
much
be.
instead of out there killing monsters, or never getting responses from people who are either
Kimse cevap
AFK
vermiyordu.
or
İtem
just
almak
can't be bothered.
istiyordunuz. Biz de halinize
In
acıdık.
order to finally solve this, and this has been a long time coming, we're adding a new system that allows you to buy items from other
Mercant'a
players
artık item
without
koyabileceğiz.
requiring the seller to be present.
Action House
They
bu.
can continue farming, killing monsters, AFK as they please,
Ve satıldığında sana
and can
bildirim geliyor
even be
direkt.
offline. With the
Veya
introduction of King's
offline
March in
kendi
Act 4, you will
satabileceksin.
encounter
Abi
Ange,
süper. Metin 2 gibi
assistant to
pazar
Rob in the
koyacağız.
Meridian Free Traders Company.
Canını
Over the last
yediğim.
2 decades or so, since
Vergi
Path of
var
Exile
mıydı?
1 storyline,
Adam itemi
Faustus has
koyarken
handed down
gold
his
verdi
knowledge
mi?
and expertise to Ange, and she is now ready to take over his
Verdi mi?
business.
Vergi var o
If you
zaman.
have a hideout unlocked already,
İnşallah
you
Türkiye
can
gibi değildir.
immediately invite her there. If you don't have a hideout yet,
Bir iteme
you will need to
50.000 gold
acquire one.
vereceksek
You
sıçtık.
can do this by completing a quest to defeat one of the bosses inhabiting an island in Act 4.
Ama biz
Allowing you then to
alışkınız
take a
yine.
slice of
Verginin
it for
vergisi var.
yourself, making it your new home and base of operations.
Yeni hideoutlar falan var.
Once invited to your hideout, she will now serve as operating your currency exchange,
Oğlum bir
but
iteme 50
also
kargo
serve as the
vermeyelim
figurehead
ya.
in your new trading empire. So, how does this new system work?
Yeni
In the
sistem nasıl
existing trade
çalışıyor?
system, you would list items for sale in premium stash tabs. And then when someone wanted one, you'd have to take it out for yourself and trade it to them.
Aa,
Now, instead of using those, you can give your items to Ange so she can sell them for you. Each item must have a price set. The prices are set using in-game currency items, such as Exalted Orbs or Chaos Orbs. Once a price is set, other players will be able to find the item by
Secure
searching
item.
for it on the trade
tak geliyor
website.
mu? Tak geliyor mu?
Once a desired item has been found,
Tak.
you can hit a button, which will instantly teleport your character in-game to their hideout. Then,
Adamın
you can
hideout'una
immediately
gidip
purchase the item.
sitesinden alıyorsun,
And while
süper
there,
ya.
if you want, browse their other
Ha,
goods.
diğer
In
itemlerini de
case there's a
görüyorsun.
good deal someone else hasn't yet discovered. You'll notice that as a buyer, on top of the currency the seller set for the price,
Adamın
it
diğer
also
satılık
costs gold to
itemlerini de
purchase an
görüyorum.
item.
Mağazayı
As Ange has
boşaltıyorum.
bills to pay after all.
Oğlum
As a
çok az
seller,
gold'dan
you'll
1000 gold
immediately receive a
istiyor.
notification when an item of yours is sold. And can also see
Oğlum
an
oyuna
effect
yeni
above Ange in
başlayanların
your
var ya,
hideout
bütün
when she has
itemlerine
unclaimed
çökmek
currency.
lazım ama. Headhunter'ı
Just
koymuştur
go talk
bir
to her,
Exile'ya.
claim
Adamın
your currency,
hideout'undan
and
çıkmamamı.
continue playing at your leisure.
Adamın
As
hideout'undan
many
çıkmam,
people
koyduğu
already acquire
itemleri.
premium stash tabs for the purpose of the
Şaka
trade
maka
system,
bir yana
we
süper lan.
wanted to add a way for you to convert your existing tabs to merchants tabs.
Bir
If you
dakika,
want.
senin var olan
You
premium
can do
stash
that here,
tablerini
on the
mercan
website.
taba çevirecek.
But only if you
O
purchase
zaman
those
parayla
tabs
satın alman
before the
gerekiyor
release
bunu.
of the third edict. To clarify, the existing trade system will remain fully intact,
Senin
so your
stash
premium
tabini
stash
mercan
tabs will not
tabına
lose any
çevireceğim.
of their functionality. We just figured people might want to switch over to this new system. We expect a lot of feedback around this new system and are
Çok
looking
fazla
forward
geri
to trying it
bildirime
out with you.
ihtiyacımız var bu konuda.
As we are
Size
not able to
ihtiyacımız
test
var.
internally with an entire thriving economy, there will certainly be some kinks to
Anasını
work
bellemeyin
out.
piyasanın diyor.
Based on how the system goes, we will be adding it to Path of Exile 1 when ready.
Bir itemin
So any
fiyatı
of the tabs
neyse
you purchase
o fiyata
will also
koyun
be
diyor. Adam
usable there
olun
later.
diyor.
Next up, we're going to be
Oğlum çok
talking
iyi lan
about our
trade
new supporter
sistemi.
packs. Today, we're launching 2 new series of supporter packs. The Justice and Trathan Executioner packs. Each tier contains the pack's full face value in points, alongside several exclusive
Supporter pack'ler
microtransactions.
geç ya.
As always, the
Ya da
microtransactions
dur
in these
bakalım,
packs are
belki
purely
alacak
cosmetic
vardır
and do
aranızda.
not affect your character's
İzleyelim mi?
power or progression in any way. The Justice
Oğlum
series
yayını
of
geri
supporter
alasım
packs
var ya.
contains 6 exclusive microtransactions. Claim glory after defeating enemies, or inspire your allies by
İzleyelim
calling
bari.
down
300
the
pointe
banner
bu.
of Justice portal. The Sphinx
Justice
Mystic
bu
hideout
30
decoration will
dolarlık
identify
herhalde.
items for you, displaying them as it does so. This ancient creature has been presented with many items
Portal
over the
veriyor,
eons,
bir de hideout
so it has some
dekorasyon.
strong expressions
Görüntü.
to make on the quality of your wares.
Portal nasıl
Become a
ki?
true warrior,
Bu
worthy of
60
delivering the
dolarlık
justice of the eternal
yanılmıyorsam.
gods,
Ama
with the
bunları satın
apostle of
alırken
justice
sakın
armor
Peto
set.
Exile'in sitesinden almayın. Epic
This
Games'ten
armor
alın.
set also comes with a
100-200
matching
lira
back
cebinizde
attachment
kalıyor.
containing a set of scales to measure your worth.
Portal geliyor.
With the
Hideout
apostle of justice
dekorasyonu.
finisher effect
Armor
equipped,
set.
the goddess of
Tekrarı.
justice herself will appear to decide on a
Bir de
verdict for
finisher effect.
slain unique enemies. Witness as she
Bunları sakın
decides the fate of your
Steam'den veya
slain
şeyden
foes.
almayın.
Will they
Oyunun kendi
ascend to be
sitesinden.
amongst the
Epic
gods,
Games'ten
or
alın.
be banished to the underworld?
Biraz daha ucuz 100-200 lira hem de
The Griffin
%5 bine
fledgling
geri
pet
iade
will
bir
be a
şey dalga
courageous
dümeni oluyor.
companion as you journey throughout Rayclast.
Oğlum o Trace sitesinde acaba quad'ı
Take your
koyabileceğiz mi
place in
ya?
the skies in the plateau of the
O
gods
zaman bir
hideout.
tane quad ayıracağız
This hideout
mercan
comes with
taba.
many different sections for setting up your home or base of operations.
Ama druid yok
In order
ya.
to travel between them, you simply just need to walk off the edge. Like a true eternal god, you can float between the mountains on the clouds themselves.
Abi zengin
The
adamın
Trithan
hideout'una bak
Executioner
be.
pack series also contains 6 exclusive microtransactions.
Oğlum atmosfere bak ya.
The Trithan Executioner finisher effect is a brutal display of Trithan might, crushing slain unique
Ya
enemies as if
druid
they were
yok,
bugs
yeni
beneath your heel.
class yok. Ascendancy class'ı bari
As a Trithan
gelseydi.
Executioner, you're the perfect
bileyim,
master for the
Huntress'ın,
ever-hungry
Beastmaster'ı
carrion
falan.
raptor pet. It has taken a particular liking to the taste of other pets,
Oğlum trade
and at your
harika lan.
command it will swoop down and eviscerate them,
100
proceeding to
kişiye yazıyorduk
satisfy
bir
its hunger
item
by
için
feeding
ya.
on their corpse.
Şunu biraz kıs ya.
The
O
nobles of the
konuşsun orada.
four major Trithan
Lan
houses
100
had
kişiye
their
yazıyorduk
mercenaries,
bir tane
but if
item
their
için
hired
ya.
hands became notably irritating,
Şimdi
they'd have to
farmını
call in
yap
the
yap
Trithan
yap.
Executioners.
Ondan sonra git
You
abi.
can now embrace their
Bütün
methods
düşen
and
itemleri
become
pazara koy.
brutality
Git
incarnate
abi uyu.
with the cruel
Sabah
Trithan
kalktığında
Executioner armor
100
set.
divine'la uyan.
The matching cruel Trithan Executioner
Süper
cloak
abi ya.
will shroud
Yok
you in scalp
o
as you crush
şeyi
the skulls of
kanka
your
şu
enemies
itemi
and
kanka
leave a
satar
trail
mısın?
of
Sen
blood behind
online'sın,
you
ben
as you build
çıkmam
up a kill
lazım.
streak. Or use the alternate
Yok
variant
oyun
to
açık
simply put a
olsun abi,
skeleton on your
film
back.
izliyorsun, oyunu yanda açık tutuyorsun.
Be
Nedir?
bathed in
İtemin
blood as you
satışta
mutilate
dursun diye.
monsters with
Ya
the cruel
arkadaş,
Trithan Executioner
çok iyi
character
oldu
effect.
ya.
The
Eski
swirling
trace
blood
sistemi
increases
yok
in
artık.
volume as your spree of
Siteden
slaughter
direkt
continues.
secure item var.
Both
Bayağı
this
item falan
effect and the
kalmadı,
cloak
bitti.
use the same kill streak for tracking
Ama
how much blood is shown.
benim anladığım kadarıyla, yanlış
After a long
anlamadıysam,
and tiring day of
para vermen
executions,
lazım bu
enjoy
trace
a
sistemini
relaxing game of
kullanabilmen
dice
için.
with the
Eskiden para
Goblin
vermene
Gambler's
gerek
hideout
yoktu
decoration.
satın almak için falan.
They'll definitely be playing fair,
Şimdi
right?
para vermen gerekiyor çünkü
The
premium
pulverizer
siteçlebini
map
olacak.
device brings a horrid efficiency to punishing
O
the
premium
damned of
siteçlebini
Trithans.
mercan
Each
siteçlebine
map you open
çevireceksin.
will execute the next
Öyle
victims.
yapabiliyorsun diye anladım.
This map device in its true ruthlessness tracks the total number
Bir
of
tane
monsters
ücretsiz
killed,
veriyor
your
mu?
kills per second, and your largest
Normal
kill streak
yok
up to
ama
the
4
point of
tane
the map
normal
being
tebim var.
completed.
Bir tane bile
This is
premium
then
yok ki
displayed on the
başta.
leaderboard, so you can take a measure of you and your friends'
Premium
violence at
siteçi
the end of
olanları
each map.
vermesine gerek yok.
Additionally, any microtransactions from the supporter packs will be made available for use in Path of Exile 1. That's enough about cosmetics. Let's get into the Q&A. But firstly, I want to give a huge thank you for your
Kahpeler
ongoing
ya,
support.
bundan da para kazanma
We're just
derdinde.
about to start the Q&A
Oğlum,
with Ziggy D.
gül suratın için mi
Afterwards,
yapıyorlar
at
oyunu?
11 a.m. NZ time or 4 p.m. Pacific, we'll
Bundan
host
da
Path
para
of Exile
kazanma
2,
derdinde.
the third
Senin gül
edict
suratın
patch
için mi
notes.
yapıyorlar oyunu?
With the release at the end of next week, our community team will
Oğlum
be
bir şey
posting
diyeyim mi
crucial
sana?
information you
Bu
need for the
öyle bir
release.
hayat
Keep
kolaylaştıran
an
bir
eye
şey
on the
ki.
news.
Hani
Thanks for joining us
3-5
today
verdiği
and checking out
para,
our
para
latest
değil abi.
developments.
Zaten
We're
veriyordun
looking
oyuna.
forward to seeing
Normalde
your
de zaten
experiences
o
with
trade
Act 4
sistemi
and its new
olmasa da
bosses,
veriyordun
fighting
parayı.
the Abyssal, trying new builds, and
Siteçlebinde
crafting new items.
siteçlebi almak için
We'll begin the
veriyordun.
Q&A shortly,
Şimdi
so
seve
please
seve
get your
vereceksin artık.
questions ready.
Patch note, onu bilmiyorum patch note ne zaman. Yazarlar belki. Oğlum 100.000 kişi izliyor ya. 100.000 kişi izliyor chat. Druid nerede abi? Herkes Druid yazıyor. Oğlum bir tane ascendance klası yok. Bir tane ascendance yok. Kanka ben şu şeyleri, Q&A'leri ben hiç sevemiyorum ya.
Probably like 2 hours or something. So grab a cuppa, grab a snack, and settle in. I'm joined once again by Jonathan and Mark to discuss a lot. The patch that had to
Ben bu
fix all the things.
Q&A'leri
Right,
sevemiyorum
that
ya.
was the goal. I mean, we didn't quite get to literally everything, but we certainly
Malum
managed
partinin
to do a lot of
şeyleri,
things that we were
röportajları
keen to
gibi
do.
oluyor.
Yeah, you guys have
Efendim
told me
bugün
that this was
nasılsınız?
uniquely
Efendim bu kadar iş yükünün altında nasıl buna katlanabiliyorsunuz?
Absolutely. I mean, look, we've
Motivasyon kaynağınız nedir hep? O tarz geçiyor. O yüzden güzel sorular gelmiyor böyle. Video gelmiş mi? Video geldiyse bir izleyelim. Çünkü altyazılı izleyebileceğiz. Ulan 1 saat 8 dakika. Bak kanka. Şimdi genel bir özet geçelim yeni gelen arkadaşlar için. Bir tane klas yok. Druid Murid. Bir tane Ascendance klası bile yok. Ne bileyim Huntress'ın Beastmaster'ı, Monk'un Martial Art'ı falan. Hiçbir şey yok. Ama şu 1 saat 8 dakika full dolu dolu abi. Yani onu söyleyebilirim. Full dolu dolu. Çok garip bir şekilde yani bu ne amık falan dedirtmedi yani açıkçası. Gelen çoğu şey güzeldi. Bir tek o koşma olayı bir garip geldi. Artık dodge böyle basılı tutunca koşacağız abi. Ve sınırı yok. Zaman sınırı yok. Dodge böyle basılı tutarsan koşuyorsun abi. Ama koşarken yandan bir tane ne kurşunuydu o? Yandan bir düğünde havaya sıkılan kurşun bir tane çarparsa yere düşüyorsun abi. Ok yoluna gidiyorsun yani yere düşüyorsun. Yani koşarken 2 kere düşünmelisin. Şey gibi düşünün. Eşek vardı ya, Roa vardı. Roa'ya binerken herhangi bir hit yersen lak düşüyordun. Düştüğünde ayağa kalkmak için bir animasyon geçmesi lazım. O animasyon geçene kadar kafanı cama sıkıştırıyorlardı. Böyle bir sorun vardı. Şimdi de aynı sıkıntıyı getirmişler. Dodge basılı tuttun mu koşuyorsun ama bir hit yersen yere düşüyorsun. Onu ben bir tek böyle yani bu ne falan dedirtti. Ama diğerleri çoğu iyi yani. Çoğu şey güzel. Ve benim gördüğüm kadarıyla 5 notları daha yayınlamadılar ama her şeyi bufflamışlar. Mercenary'e bakıyorsun çok güzel duruyor. Warrior'a bakıyorsun o Volcanic Fissure yere vuruyor, deprem yaratıyor falan her tarafta şey. O da çok iyi. Sorceress'a bakıyorsun bütün Fire Code Lightning skill'leri kaosa çevirip kaos üzerinden Sorceress oynama. O da çok efsane olabilir. Şeyde var bir de skill tree'de var. Bir de onu Lich'ten yaptığını düşün. Witch klasını Lich Ascendancy'nden yaptığını düşün. Onda zaten Lich'ten fena vardı. Yani çok fena ve şey var. Muhammed Ali geldi. Ona bir daha bakmak istiyorum o Muhammed Ali kısmına. O Muhammed Ali kısmı da güzel. Neredeydi bu? Ha, şurada bir yerdeydi.
We felt like playing on way more than enough.
Even
Triggered a skill extra lightning up while all great ball threshold. While
Şuna baksana abi life veren şey var. Normalde life veren bir şey yoktu 3'de. Şimdi life var ha hem de 4 dexterity başına 1 life. Bunlar 10 life bile koymamıştı 3'ye. Hani çok felaket bufflar var ama nerfleri söylemediler. Nerfler kim bilir nasıl. Bakalım. Bak mesela bu abi fire spell'lerin fire damage'i chaos damage'e dönüşecek diyor. What the fuck is going on? Hani düşünsene Firestorm'la beraber chaos vuracaksın abi. Magnitude büyüklük anlamında. Bu da çok fena. Ignite magnitude falan alıyordun. Şok magnitude falan. Bunlar attığın şokun kalınlığını belirtiyor. Daha fazla şokluyorsun. Bu sefer daha fazla hasar yemesine sebep oluyorsun yaratığın gibi. Çok çok fena ya.
fire spells to chaos and causes your ignite will help generate them and solar orb to detonate those as well, which means you can create many infusions at once.
Ha şeyi gördüm. Aha bu.
Energy shield
Bu efsane kanka. Bak armor itemlerindeki yani body armor, kafalık, eldiven, ayakkabı hepsindeki 25 evasion başına %1 mor atak speed. Yani yumruklayacaksın Muhammed Ali gibi. Hem de öküz gibi yumruklayacaksın. Yani çok hızlı yumruklayacaksın. Ve bunu leveling'de de yapabiliriz. Leveling'de bunu alacaksın. Path of Exile 1'de mesela leveling hep Hollow Palm'la yapıyorduk. Yani %0.1 crit chance veriyor. 10 enerji sheet başına. Giydiğin itemlerdeki enerji sheet. Bu da fena. Enerji sheet evasion itemleri alacaksın o zaman. Hem attack speed hem crit chance. Vay babanın kemiğine. Ve iki elinde boşta quarter staff takmışsın gibi gözükecek. Yani quarter staff skill'leri kullanabileceksin. Quarter staff skill'leri ne var abi aklınıza gelen? Ice Strike var. Killing Palm var. Flicker var.
and evasion on your character.
Bu ne abi şu arkaya
Bonuses
bir
for
şey
all your
atıyor
attacks from
üçlü.
stacking energy shield and evasion on
Bu
your
Ice Strike.
character.
Bu ismini unuttum üçlü. Kanka fena olabilir bu ya.
A new keystone we also added to the monk section of the tree.
Bu çöp.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Rogers from Grinding Gear Games, and welcome to GGG Live. Today we're going to show you an exclusive reveal of what's
Efsane
coming next
duruyor
for
ya.
Path of Exile 2. Twitch drops are enabled on today's live stream.
Huntress'e
you'll be able
hiç
to claim your
dokunmadılar
Sun
çünkü
Priest's
Huntress zaten en fazla
incineration rare
oynanan
finisher effect by
şeydi.
following the instructions below. Now with that out of the way, let's get started. It's time to give you a teaser of what's coming in Path of Exile 2.
Samet Duyuruldu'nun şekilde değiştirme animasyonlarını yetiştirememişler. O yüzden gelmemiş insanların ayıya ve kurta animasyonlarını. Evet, evet. Biliyordum bunu. Maalesef. Kurttan ayıya dönüşürken, ayıdan kurda dönüşürken kostümlerin görünüşünde bir sıkıntı oluşuyormuş. O sıkıntıyı giderememişler ve Druid yetişemedi o yüzden. Druid'de kostümü kapat. Çok basit. 3 ay 4 ay boyunca Druid'de kostüm olmasın.
Third Edict.
I have called you here to save our people.
Oğlum campaign güzel olabilir ya. Akt 4.
Over the ages, we have known pain like no other, but we endured.
Yeni silah da yok bu arada lan. Ne sword var ne claw var. Aslında yeni bir şey yok. Ama 1 saat 8 dakika nasıl bu kadar garip geldi lan? Çok garip oldu. Bu arada arkadaşlar YouTube'a da bir selam olsun. Arkadaşlar izlediğiniz için teşekkürler. Bu tarz videoların devamının gelmesi için beğenip abone olabilirsiniz. Beraber bir lansmanı izledik. Şimdi tekrar bir üstünden geçmeyi düşünüyoruz yayındaki arkadaşlarla. Görüşmek üzere. Detaylı bir özeti de artık atarım bu akşama veya yarın akşama. Görüşmek üzere.